This is Dr. West. Welcome to the Bible Answer Man, and hoping that this question might be a blessing to you.
Question: what is the function of the gift of tongues? Well, this comes up fairly often, although not as much as it used to, because nobody's preaching it anymore. You can go to a Pentecostal church, and it sounds like any other compromised denomination. You go in with a hunger, you come out without a hunger. They never talk about the gifts of the Spirit, and here they're talking about the gifts of the Spirit in the language area, the gift of tongues. Well, tongues in this sense, is a biblical term. It has nothing to do with our conversational ability in the natural communication, person to person, talking about righteous things and holy things. That's not a testimony. That's not what it's talking about. It's a tongue is a spiritual manifestation, not just speaking or speaking words. Tongues fall into basically four categories. They're a supernatural manifestation of the Holy Spirit through an individual or to an individual. First of all, they are given as a sign to the unbeliever. If there's an unbeliever in a service and a gift of tongues come forth, it should be interpreted. And if that happens, that will be a sign to the unbeliever, because there will be something in that will stir that unbeliever's heart and draw them to the Lord. That's one of the manifestations. The second gift of the tongues, when we are baptized in the Holy Spirit. That's a second work after salvation. You don't get everything at salvation. You're baptized and you're saved, but there's other things that come to you, and the baptism of the Holy Spirit is available, and the manifestation of that is the sign that that's happened in the life. You get a prayer language. That's where you can speak in a tongue that you didn't understand to the Lord. When a tongue is given in a church, it's basically a tongue that is known somewhere on earth. Or it can be an angelic tongue, but it needs interpretation. A tongue that's given to a person can be a tongue that's basically of an angel's tongue. It's a specific tongue to you, and it's a prayer language. It's where you can bypass your emotions and your soul and speak to God directly out of your spirit, speaking words that you don't know, but God will give you an interpretation. And there'll be a well springing up inside of you. Tongues can be a message to the church. So when tongues are given, they can be a prophecy, which is in a known language to the church. Somebody giving exhortation, comfort to a church. Edification, exhortation, or comfort is what will be happening there. A sign to the unbeliever, and that requires an interpretation, which will be a message to the tongue, or that can be a prayer language. So I hope that helps. And maybe you're in a Pentecostal church or in a non-Pentecostal church, and you've wondered about that. That's the answer to you. And if you're in a Pentecostal church and your pastor is not preaching about these kind of things, you need to go to the pastor one-on-one. Don't take a committee. Don't gossip. Go to your pastor and say, Pastor, there's things that we ought to be doing that we're not doing. And I encourage you and I implore you to get back to the Bible. Give us some biblical answers to problems. Don't give us psychology. Psychology to a place, maybe has maybe some elementary good to it. Not very much at all. I mean, there's some things that are common. They call psychology. The psychology will say if you stick your hand to a burner on the stove, it's going to burn you. But then there's some deep intrinsic piece of information that you need as to why you did that, why you had a motivation. But there's nothing really in psychology for the Christian. God will teach us all that we need and give into our mind. And if you don't have the capability to understand, ask God. He says he'll give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding in these things.